Hello there, I'm your host Mel, and you are listening to the third episode of the Kaleidoscope Show podcast, where I share my weekly procrastination topics or just the things I find interesting throughout the week. Lately, I'm thinking of the possibility of starting to grow some food at home, and the easiest starter kits I found was one of the mushroom ones, which led down to a wonderful world of mushrooms. Mushrooms are far more than just pizza toppings. They are the fruiting bodies of a vast hidden network of organisms called mycelium, which live beneath the soil. They are neither plants nor animals. They belong to their own separate group called fungi. However, they look more like plants. Their behavior is much closer to animals. Mushrooms don't photosynthesize, but digest dead or alive organic matter externally, and their cell walls contain chitin, like insects' exoskeletons, not cellulose. They store carbohydrates as glycogen, similar to animals. There are estimated to be over 140,000 species of mushrooms worldwide, with only about 10% of them identified. But it could be even 2 to 3 million species still out there waiting to be discovered. Fungi, which include the yeasts, rusts, moths, mildew, molds, and mushrooms. The four types of mushrooms are saprotrophonic, mycorrhizal, parasitic, and endophytic. Let's start with the saprotrophic mushrooms. These are the ones that love decay. They break down dead organic matters such as decaying wood or leaf litter, and are essentials for decomposition in the ecosystems. Believe it or not, millions and millions of years ago, there were a time when only trees ruled the planet. And there were a time when a tree fell down, nothing ate it or it didn't disappear. It was just there for a long time until mushroom developed and they started to decay the dead materials. This is the group where we have most of the edible mushrooms, like oyster mushrooms, white buttons, creminis, portobellos, morels, and shiitakes. The next group is the mycorrhizal mushrooms. These are the ones that form a beneficial symbiotic relationship with the plants. They take sugar from the plant and in return give water and help them to reach nutrients to the entwined root systems. One of the yummiest mushrooms are these types, like truffles, porcini, and chanterellas. Then we reach the parasitic mushrooms. Unlike the previous group, they benefit from the plants, but they don't give back anything in exchange. They feed on the weak and eventually kill the host plant. The best known mushrooms of this type are lion's mane and chaga. The other type of parasitic mushrooms are the cordyceps. And if you ever played or watched The Last of Us, you're probably familiar with them. They take over the organic material of bugs and insects and force them into a zombie-like state to move around and spread the fungi further. And the last group is the endophytic mushrooms. This one is a mysterious category. They live inside plants without causing them harm. They play a role in a plant health and resilience, though they are not a common type of mushroom for consumption. They behave like part parasitic and part mycorrhizal mushrooms. They do take over the host plant's tissue, and they maintain a symbiotic relationship, but they don't hurt the plant. They don't really produce mushrooms, and it is hard to spot an infected plant in the wild. Also would like to mention the fact that most of the mushrooms we spot above the ground are the reproductive organs of the mycelium network, not the whole mushroom itself. So, the other night I couldn't sleep and my brain just popped up the unexpected question of where the word ketchup came from, as it doesn't not sound like very English, does it? The origin of ketchup is quite fascinating and reveals a rich history that spans across cultures. The word ketchup is believed to originate from the Hokkien Chinese word ketchup or ko-chiap, which referred to a fermented fish sauce dating back to 300 BCE. This sauce was quite different from the tomato-based ketchup we know today. The concept of ketchup spread to various parts of Southeast Asia, where it was adopted and modified. In fact, it was often made from ingredients like mushrooms or walnuts. Once it reached Europe in the 1600s, when traders encountered this sauce and brought it back to the West, it started to gain popularity. It began to appear even in English cookbooks, often as a recipe for a sauce made from fermented ingredients. Lacking the original ingredients, British chefs created their own versions using local items like mushrooms, walnuts, and oysters. These were dark, savory sauces, not the red, sweet condiment we know today. The transformation into the tomato-based ketchup only happened in the 1820s, when tomato ketchup became popular in the United States. Tomatoes, although native to Americans, were generally considered ornamental or even toxic in North America until the early 19th century. The first known recipe for a tomato-based ketchup was published in 1812 by Philadelphia scientist and horticulturist Dr. James Mees, who called it love apple ketchup. In 1820, public opinion shifted significantly when Colonel Robert Gibbon Johnson of Salem, New Jersey, dramatically ate a whole basket of raw tomatoes on the step of the local courthouse to challenge the popular belief that they were a deadly poison. This act helped to dispel the fears surrounding tomatoes and paved the way for their widespread culinary adoption. The first commercial ketchup was produced in the 1870s, and it quickly became a staple in the American household through Heinz, who created the version we recognize today, thick and rich with vinegar and sugar for preservation. And it was later perfected and mass-produced by them and launched his famous recipe in 1876. I would also like to mention some of the topics. This is now the third episode of this podcast. And every week, when I'm doing my procrastination and looking into things on the internet, I stumble upon some topics that they turn out to be fake AI or hoax. Despite some of them looks very interesting at first sight. For example, the one I encountered earlier was Mount Poultry. The image showed a really tiny mountain-looking rock with the post sign next to it that Mount Poultry, the smallest mountain in the world, only 7 centimeters, and claimed to became by tectonic movements. Therefore, it fulfilled all the geological requirements for a mountain. So when I started to research the topic and looked into it, unfortunately, I had to realize that the Times newspaper already looked into it and it turned out to be a hoax, and they couldn't find any location where this mountain exists. It would have been a really interesting to have a 7 centimeter mountain to be the world's smallest mountain. However, I did find the world's smallest mountain. It's not that small, it's 143 meter tall, and it's in Australia. So there's that. The other topic I really wanted to be true was that the news claimed that they arrested 3 grown-up men dressed as a sheep while they tried to sneak into Algeria. And I found it really fascinating because this would have been the best story of border crossing illegally ever. I mean, we've found stories like when people dressed up as a woman, people try to sneak in all kind of ways, hiding in vehicles, etc. But to dress as sheep, that would have been the top on my list. Unfortunately, it turns out that the photos they used for this fake news was from a Spanish carnival years ago, and it showed a group of men dressed as a sheep in the back of a truck. They were participants on the carnival. So we can imagine my disappointment when this turned out to be also false. So we reached the last topic of this week's procrastination, and it was one of my other night thoughts when I couldn't sleep. Why we don't have giant dogs when we have giant cats like tigers and lions? I looked into the topics. I watched several videos made by biologists, and I read into it, and it turns out it all comes down to the evolutional behavior and how they hunting and how they developed as a group. So while we have wolves and dogs hunting in packs, we usually have giant cats hunting either alone or with lions, a very small group. So the wolves and dogs hunting tactics require the pack to chase the prey until the prey gets tired or falls, and then the multiple of them attacks the prey to kill it. That requires a leaner, faster runner, muscular skeletal development. Meanwhile, for giant cats, the tactic of hunting is to sneak upon the prey very quietly, unnoticeable, and then jump on it and kill it as quick as possible, biting their throats, or the other difference in the development that their thumb that they can use to push down the prey while they kill it. So it all comes down for hunting and that which animal lives in pack or not. And we reached the end of this week's episode. Thank you for listening. Please make sure to like, follow and subscribe on all the social media platforms or on the platform that you're listening. If you have any questions or any topic suggestions, or you just want to say hi, please make sure to email the kaleidoscopeshow@gmail.com. Take care and talk to you next week. Bye bye.